The scuffle seen around the world, Deebo Samuel, Tabor Pepper, Jake Moody, all of it. It's been heavily discussed, but we haven't really heard from Kyle Shanahan all that much in depth on it since it's happened. We heard it after the game. He spoke on it, but he hadn't seen it up until this point. And so when he went on to Tolbert and Copes today on KMBR, he talked about it in depth and he provided some context to it based on actually seeing it and how it kind of changed his mind of what it was. And he was like, oh, that's a lot worse than what I thought it was. So I found it interesting. Take a listen to what Kyle Shanahan had to say on the scuffle.
I didn't think it was that big a deal, the Peppers Deebo thing. I've been in sports teams and I know that stuff happens, but I know it's not a good look and people look at it and say, well, I don't see that very often. So obviously it's going to be made a bigger deal of, I think. But was there much after the game? Although I was telling Moody, like, get out, what are you doing in there between Deebo and Pay? You're gonna get hurt.
Right.
You're not doing anything. But it didn't seem like that big a deal to me. Was it a big deal to you? And is there any residue from it?
No, there's none at all, and I mean that's just kind of what's tough. I mean that's sports, so that's why you felt the way you did. I mean I don't see it when it happens,
Yeah.
so when I hear about it after the game, I was kind of laughing about it, to tell you the truth, and we were joking about it on the plane, not thinking, because I mean, I get bothered when people embarrass people, and and that I don't want any player on our team to ever do that. And talking to Moody and stuff, and talking to Deebo, when I found out about it after the game, what Deebo said and stuff, he wasn't belittling him or anything. He was talking to him like an athlete does, and just being like, "Hey man, you got to lock in. We're gonna need you."
Yep.
And that's when I'm upset with a player for dropping balls or doing stuff. That's how I talk to him. I don't go up to him and say, "Man, you're costing us the game. You suck." But then I get home and I'm going to bed. I'm watching Sports Center, and they show Moody miss a kick, and then they show me just probably saying cuss words and getting all mad, and then I get embarrassed about that. And I'm not sitting there cussing out Moody. I'm sitting there being like, man, that was a hard decision to go for it or kick it. I thought it was right to kick it, but now that we missed it, I'm cussing myself out for not going for it. I'm not cussing him out. And then the next thing, they show him miss another kick, and I'm watching Deebo throw a punch at Pep that grazes him, and it looks like he hits our kicker. So now it looks like we're hitting our kicker and stuff. So it just looked so bad when I saw him, like, oh man, this isn't funny. And I got to talk to the guys about it, and they were good. It was no big deal here, but when stuff like that happens, it gets pumped up and everything, and it's entertaining for people, and that's why we had to make sure it was all squashed the next day.
Absolutely.
So I think we all agree with Kyle. Like, we understand what it is. Things are going to be said. Things are going to happen. It's football. We all understand that part of it. Like, we get that. But it's obviously the throat hit that we don't see that every day. That's the difference. And it's like, so he was saying, like, he was watching it and he's like, oh wow, that was a whole lot worse than what I thought it was. And so because of that, he then had to bring everyone together and they had to squash it and make sure, because, being a head coach, he didn't see it. So he's just hearing about how they talk about it. And, scuffles and shoving matches happen all the time. But again, like, one of the things that we've mentioned is, a throat punch is rare. We don't see that. Now that might happen in camp. And I've made this point too. If the Brandon Ayuk, Fred Warner training camp fight from, I think, 2022 was on video, it would be one of the greatest football fights of all time. It was pure cinema. And because you don't see stuff like that anymore. But those guys, straight up, hands up in each other's face, throwing fists, and they're buds. They're good. That's fine. It's football. We see that stuff all the time. Again, because it happened on the sideline, because it was for everyone to see, in the context of the game, it carries a different weight. Obviously, thankfully, the 49ers win that game, and it's not a big deal, and it's just like, all right, we move on from this. But I found Kyle's takes on it interesting. I really did. Also, too, I have to say, wild day. This is actually the last day of Tom Tolbert on KMBR. And I know this video is about the scuffle and the fight, but feel like I got to talk about Tom Tolbert a little bit. And admittedly, so I was late to sports radio. I didn't grow up on sports radio. I started listening to it as an adult, probably about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. Right about around when 95.7 the game started. And so I wasn't an AM guy. I never really listened to KMBR. And I'd always listen to 95.7 the game. But when I started doing 49ers content, and you had the Kyle Shanahans and the John Lynches and the, Steve Youngs join KMBR, that's what introduced me to Tom Tolbert. And Tolbert is great. I fell in love with Tolbert right away. And the fact that he's been doing this for 28 years and I have only been listening to him for probably 2 or 3 years, I can't even imagine how some fans feel knowing that was Tom Tolbert's last day because I got emotional. Like I just watched the sign off that they had. I almost teared up watching those guys get emotional about it. And it's just it's tough industry, tough business. I know this is a complete tangent from the original point of the video. But I share a lot of KMBR and have a good relationship with the people at KMBR, and you know, we have a mutual agreement, to be able to do these types of things and share this content with you, and as a result of that, got to meet a lot of people over at KMBR, and again, like I said, I now listen to Tom, and I think Tom was phenomenal. Same with Copes, and sad. It's sad, man. Sad is Kyle Shanahan was like, I know it's in my contract to come on here every week, but I'm gonna have to see if I can get out of this now because Tom's not here anymore. So I mean, Tom means a lot. And again, these shows that we share on this channel, little sound bites, little clips, and interviews that they do, a lot of that is on Tom's show with Copes. And so it's going to be weird now, showing you some of these clips, from the people that we check in with, the John Lynches and, or the Kyle Shanahans and Steve Youngs, and Tolbert's not going to be there anymore. So crazy, man. Tough day. And, feel for everyone over there at KMBR. Appreciate the work that Tom has done and really became a fan of his these last couple years. And it's tough, man. So I'm curious to know what you guys have to think about that. Let me know in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.